Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee or tea with AmericanScouser.com. I have the coffee going again this morning. It's Wednesday, so back to being the world's greatest dad. And with us this morning, it's Wednesday, Rami, I would say. Rami, what's going on, man?
What's up, Tima? How are you? I'm happy to be here. I have my water, not some over here somewhere, not some coffee or tea, but
Yeah, well, that's good. Filling in
yeah,
for Trevor, who kind of excelled in clear drinks in the morning, whether it was seltzer or something like that. But sometimes alcoholic seltzer. But all you need is cans in the back, and you'd be good to go. You'd just be like Trevor in the morning. Which, speaking
right.
of Trevor, in honor of Trevor, we don't even know how reliable this news is, but there was a tweet this morning that you were like sharing with me prior to the show regarding his boy Cristiano Ronaldo. He just loved talking about him. Not really. He couldn't stand it. But the rumor is that he has agreed with the Saudi Arabian club Al Nasser for 173 million per year. I'm personally not buying it because that would just totally say sellout, which he would not probably want, especially after the way he left. But you never know. But yeah, I mean, even you were saying the sources are not very reliable. So, but
Right.
it would be interesting if something like that happens. And I don't know who he would go to anyway, but in honor of Trevor, I figured we bring up Cristiano Ronaldo. It's like a moment of silence for Trevor. Alan's with us this morning, as always. Good morning, Alan. So, um, the main conversation is going to be the World Cup. Pretty much every headline I saw was pretty much regarding the World Cup anyway. So we'll recap yesterday first. I want to get your take on a couple of things, and then we will go to today's action as well. So yesterday's games, let's start with Group A. Go in order over here. Um, Netherlands Qatar was kind of like a game you almost kind of like knew the results. It's one of the few games I think in this World Cup where you were almost certain about the results, right? But
Right.
Ecuador Senegal turns out to be a good game. I don't know who you had going into it, but Ecuador equalizes, and then within a few minutes, with that joy, they lose focus. They get conceded. They get conceded on again, and they lose 2-1 to Senegal, who actually I had originally picked out of this group. Are you anything shocks you about this group in terms of like the standings?
Not really. Not in terms of the standing itself. I think a lot of people had Senegal going through in that second place, anyways. I think what shocked me was I think Ecuador's approach to that game yesterday. It seemed like they were kind of playing for a draw, and instead of trying to go for the because they just needed a draw, instead of going for the win, and if you end up tying, then so be it. But yeah, they just try to slow the game down completely, and I think Senegal are a good enough team, even without Mane, that they're able to take advantage of that. And so that's probably what surprised me the most is I thought Ecuador, because the way they've been playing all tournament was very attacking and high pressing, high intensity, stuff like that. And so for them trying to kind of get away from that and a must-win game, kind of felt it definitely surprised me for sure.
I have to check the stats, but is Qatar probably like the worst performing hosts country? Because they didn't even get to
Yeah,
score a goal at the end, right? I mean, usually, even when you have countries hosting that are not, maybe that's established in international soccer or whatever, just the home crowds and all that kind of stuff usually gets you like a point here, especially like the first game is usually like a shocker. Like I can't remember who it was against. I'm that old, but Argentina like had tied against somebody when they were major favorites in a opening game and stuff like that. Are you surprised at all in terms of like how bad they have been?
I'll be honest, yeah, a little bit. I thought, like you said, with it being on their home field, them knowing the environment, the stadiums, they've been building this team for apparently like 10 years, just with different youth projects and all of these things. And so they've had the same coach also for like 8 or 9 years, stuff like that. So I thought, there'd be a more cohesive unit. But what actually disappointed me more than like the on the field performance is I'm not sure if you noticed this is, I think they played 3 games. And I think every game their crowd left at halftime, basically. Um, yeah, and usually like when the host team plays, like even South Africa in 2010 wasn't the strongest team, but when they
Yeah.
played, there was a party. You know what I mean? Like everybody knew. But
Because
Qatar this year
like
just
you're saying, because they've been waiting for this for 8-9 years.
right, exactly. You think it'd be more of like a party setting, but just like I don't think there's a football culture there, at least not yet. And so just add that to the list of reasons why it was a mistake to host it there. But
I mean,
yeah, it's
I
kind of the
think,
impression.
I mean, they're like a soccer first country, like like similar to Turkey, where it's like soccer, then everything else. It's not like totally like the US here, where it's spread out evenly, I would say, mostly, right? I mean, it's not,
Mhm.
the sports are seasonal in the US, if you will. Like, you're like, it's basketball season, it's football season. So I mean, it's another country that's, I mean, similar to Turkey, like they're all about the sport. But at the same time, I just find it odd that it's, yeah, like you're, first of all, you're saying, like you're saying, they've been getting ready for this for like a long time. And the performance from that has been shockingly bad. But even as they're getting ready, it's not like, we saw them playing all these games where you could say, man, they're like really building a team over there. I mean, I just don't recall as many games where they have played top competition. It's almost like even when they did like friendlies, it was against just like below subpar teams. Is that just to keep the morale up because they don't want to take on England or somebody and get hammered as they get ready for the tournament?
Yeah, could be. And also, I had more hope in them because they won I believe it's 2019 Asian Cup. And so I was like, oh, if they can win the Asia Cup against teams against like Japan, Saudi Arabia that we're seeing do well at the World Cup, then, they might have a chance. But the team that won that, for some reason, is completely different than the one that's playing now in the World Cup. And, even they played in the Gold Cup, I think it was last year in like the North American tournament and only lost to, well, I guess it was USA's B team, but only lost to the USA by a small margin. So I think there's a bit of like misguided hope for that team, if you can call it that. That they just do better than they actually did. But it's just hard when you're. I think what they expected was different than what actually happened. I think they were expecting to show up and everyone treat them like the host and go easy on them or something, but that's not what happened at all. So
It's like, I don't know, whatever you guys have. If you guys have like regular tea, that's fine too, kind of thing. Yeah. Kelly is with us this morning. Good morning, Kelly, and Sparky Parky as well. Good morning, guys. So that's the thing. It's just was odd in terms of, yeah, how, and I don't know if that's the fan reaction kind of reflects that too. You wait for something for 8 years and you're like, I'm waiting for this. Like by
mhm.
halftime, you're like, I'm out of here. But it was, that's a good point. That was odd seeing that, where the stadiums didn't really feel like, oh, this is a home game. And that's just kind of like odd. And I don't know, the stadiums are new. I think sometimes when you have, like, if there's a home game, and I even noticed this, like in Turkey, for example, like they try to scatter the national games. It used to be always in Istanbul or Ankara. And I know if it's a stadium everybody is familiar with, it's like a established stadium, if you will. The environment is always a lot better, and the performance is always a lot better because the players are kind of used to that stadium as well. These were all brand new stadiums, so it's not like these guys had so much experience playing in these stadiums because they were all kind of built for the World Cup. But yeah, it is kind of like disappointing. I mean, we've had countries in the past where, I guess disappointing in the sense for Qatar. I mean, I personally don't care, but it was just like kind of like shocking that the home team, the host team would do that poorly, even in the games. Like you never felt like they were in, like shots on goal and things like that. It wasn't just like, oh man, it's not happening for them or anything like that. But yeah, I think the Netherlands was the favorite to win that. Before Mane. When I did my predictions, I had Senegal as second, and then afterwards I was like, oh, I don't know what's gonna happen without Mane. And you're right. I think Ecuador playing for a draw kind of hurt it. I mean, Valencia is my boy because he plays for Fenerbahce. So part of me felt bad for him. But part of me was like, good, now he can get back and rest, kind of thing, because he was getting hammered throughout the tournament. But let's get to Group B, which actually that was a good game yesterday with Iran USA. It's pronounced Iran, by the way, which we covered this on the podcast yesterday. I think I do it anyway because it's like the same in Turkish. Okay, so what do you say about that group? Apart from Wales being almost as bad as Qatar.
I think that's a bit unfair to Wales. Maybe they're not that bad, but yeah. I think it was definitely a very entertaining group. For me, I'm not despite living in America, Egypt is my national team, so the USA I don't really have a strong affinity towards. So I kind of watch them as a neutral. And to be honest, yeah, that team has impressed me. They're not like the same USA teams of years past where you're having, mixed Discarud in midfield and claiming that you're going to win the World Cup. No, you actually have a strong foundation, good youth setup, and I think they play with a lot of desire, and that honestly impressed me the most. I thought a different team could have folded yesterday against Iran, just the pressure that they were under, and everything surrounding the game and all of that. But I was very impressed with the composure they had, and I think it's not unfair to say that they were easily the second best team in that group. So yeah, so that was a great game to watch. I did feel for Iran too, just with everything that's going on. They're gonna go back to their country and just have to deal with a lot of other external factors, and so I did feel for them and just seeing the reaction after the game. But you can't say that the United States hasn't deserved to go through.
Yeah, I think seeing like these third games, and I think we're going to see this obviously through elimination as well. I mean, it shows how much it means to these guys, how they're just not, it's not like an NBA game where they just like high five and walk out afterwards. I mean, it's just like, you can see how painful it is to lose at that stage and like be out. And after waiting for this for so long, it's like for most players, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be there in the first place. So, yeah, I thought Iran was a lot better than I thought they were, to be honest with you, as a team. And it's not like just results. I mean, the way they play and stuff like that. But watching that game yesterday, it just felt like they just don't have, they're not as athletic and they don't have the speed to go against a team like the US, which means against other teams, against another team like France or something like that, they would struggle more. It's just watching that. But one thing I was going to ask you about US, and now that they take on Netherlands, so we'll go through those matchups next. But what do you think about the youth in terms of, does that help the cause in terms of bringing that energy? Because you could literally see Iran as the game went on getting more and more tired, whereas US kept, was able to keep that energy level up. But at the same time, towards the end of the game, you see how naive this squad is, where they just don't know how to kill a game. I think it was on a Discord channel. Michael Martin was like, they got to sub Henderson or somebody in to close out this game. They just didn't have anybody to say. I don't know, Pulisic was out, but it's not like he's that kind of player either. They just don't have people on the field saying, okay, let's relax. We got this. Slow it down. It just was like they play one speed.
Right, and like you said, they don't have a James Milner to take the ball into the corner and and waste about 2 minutes. But yeah, no, I think it's tough to say. Really, I think you're right, 100%. If you watched the three U.S. group games, all three second halves looked very similar. They were just kind of holding on for dear life, and I don't know if that's tactical or if, like you said, it's just lack of experience just rearing its head. But I think against a team like Netherlands, I think the U.S., if they have a best chance, they either need to go into extra time 0-0 or be the first ones to score. So if it's 1-1, something like that. Because I think if Netherlands scores first, I could see those young players kind of losing their heads a little bit, and then ending up 2 or 3-0. That's the main concern. But like I said, I think if they can keep it close, keep it tight, maybe get the first goal, even if they end up conceding later on, I think that's their best chance at getting a win.
Yeah, I mean, England ends up kind of like running away with this group, which I think we expected. I just did not expect Wales to be. I mean, you're saying it's unfair to Qatar, but I mean, it's well, I guess Qatar did score a goal, by the way. I gotta take that back. I apologize. But I mean, so did Wales, so I guess the bar is low. And then they were -5. I think, a group where you expected to, the difference to me, like when we talk about, like if we're comparing them, is nobody expected Qatar to do much else. We were like, hey, maybe they'll be third, beat out Ecuador and stuff, which Ecuador was like a lot better team than I think most expected to be. But you look at Wales, where they were probably the favorites going in to be second in that group, and they're like dead last, not even close. And honestly, like even in the games, they were never in those games. I mean, against US, I thought US deserved to. If US had finishers, I think they would have like easily won that game and stuff like that. But what do you say about England's performance? Do you watch these group games and say this team is gonna go all the way, or like a team like Senegal will give them a lot of worries?
Honestly, yeah, this might be a cop out, but I see both.
That is a cop out.
Yeah, because you watch them against the United States, and they don't want to take off the handbrake, and they're just defending for a 0-0 draw against the team that they're better against. And then you see them against Wales, and their B team basically could have put up like 6 or 7 goals. So it's very interesting. I just think Southgate is going to Southgate, and they're going to try to 1-0 every single game this tournament, and just park the bus, which is boring for the fans, especially with the attacking talent that they have, but it's effective and it's gotten them pretty far in the last 2 tournaments. So I think you really can't count England out, but I do think they are going to struggle with Senegal. I think even without Mane, Senegal has enough athletes and enough talent around the field that they can give a team like England a problem. But and even if they do get past Senegal, then the question comes: will they play France? Because it looks like that's the likely matchup too in the quarterfinals. So for them getting the finals is going to be a difficult prospect. But I think if there's a team that's talented enough to do it, it's definitely England. It's just a matter of can they put it all together? Can they, actually play their best players? Like, can Foden actually see the field? Can Trent actually see the field? Stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. But I don't think that Senegal game is going to be very straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, we made this ticker on Monday when Matush was joining us. I don't know if he's watching live right now, but where he was number one in the World Cup pool. Every time we talk, we kind of he made sure he was rubbing it in all weekend too in the chat, constantly bringing it up. So somebody says somebody goes and looks, I think. But I hit to my horn. Now, first of all, Matush is no longer number one, so he won't be actually bringing it up anytime soon. We might be able to put away that ticker. But I did have actually like this group. The first group I had it as I had to say I did have Wales going up. That's why it's so disappointing in their Qatar like to me. But I did have Senegal actually beating out England in the next round. But of course, when I did these predictions, Mane was around. So I don't know if that's going to be a factor, but it's definitely a team that has speed up top, that can do certain things. It's just their defending has been suspect, especially in set pieces that we saw against Ecuador. Every set piece was dangerous if the ball was delivered well. I think against a team like England, that would be a major struggle. How about Netherlands, USA? So we're on the same boat with you rooting for Egypt, me rooting for Turkey, so we can look at it a bit more objectively. I knew that they would get past Iran. I had like 2-1 or something like that, I think, for score. But against Netherlands, I do feel like Netherlands will go through. They just have way too many weapons and people who can be dangerous compared to obviously what they face with Iran.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I don't think it's like if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd probably say like 60-40 to Netherlands. I think it's closer than what a lot of people expect, just because Netherlands hasn't impressed me that much this tournament. But we'll see. We'll see. I like the U.S. has struggled to score goals, and they're coming against arguably the best defender in the world. The U.S. is their defense line can be suspect at times. They're coming against like a player like Cody Gakpo who's on fire. So I think, like you said, I think over 90, potentially 120 minutes, Netherlands has that extra bit of quality that I think we'll see him over the line. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's very tight, hotly contested game that we see.
Yeah, because Netherlands doesn't seem to be able to blow anyone away, like you said. But at the same time, this is going to be one of those games where, like you were talking earlier, if US concedes one, it's not a good team to be chasing games, based mainly due to the youth, I would say, more than anything else. But aside from that, I don't think they're like really built for that. They can't go all out and attack, for example, and leave their center backs hanging there because it would be dangerous, because there is speed up top like Gakpo and Depay and stuff like that at Netherlands. That I think that was one thing Iran did not have. Even though it's a decent countering team, when they were countering, there wasn't a lot of speed up top to be able to go over the top till they changed formation when they started chasing the game. But so that's going to be interesting. But I do have Netherlands, and Sparky Parky has Netherlands beating USA too. Sparky Parky has England out against France, which, yeah, I mean, I did not. If that was a matchup, I would definitely go with France as well, just because, again, of like the speed factor and the attacking factor. But I'm gonna stick with the pool over here. Senegal eliminating England, so that's we get some more points over here. So today's games, let's start with Group D. Tunisia, France seems like the dud of the day. Australia, Denmark, is one probably to look for. When we look at the standings over here, um, Denmark needs a win. Is that going to be a boring game to watch with Australia parking the bus?
I believe Australia, if they get a draw too, well, unless Tunisia beats France by like 3 goals, I think, which
Yeah.
won't happen. But I think if Australia gets a draw too, they're through.
Yes.
Which is
Oh, you
interesting
said Denmark has
scenario.
to get a win to be able
Oh,
to
Denmark.
qualify.
Okay.
So it's going to be
Yeah.
Denmark going all out, you would think, with Australia defending for dear life.
Right. I mean, if Australia watched any of those games yesterday, they'll know that playing for a draw might not be the most successful tactic, as we saw Iran and Ecuador, bow out because of that. But yeah, I hope that game's not boring because I think those early games might be kind of duds, like you said, compared to the later games, which all look like really good, intense games. But I mean, we'll see if France rests their team, like they play their B team against, because I think they basically clinched first spot on
Yes.
goal difference. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see because Tunisia, if they get a win somehow against France, and that opens up that whole group. So I think that'll be the interesting thing to watch. But if France scores a goal early and just puts that game to bed, then that one will be kind of a boring watch. And then, like I said, I think it would just be Denmark getting shots on Australia's goal for 90 minutes and seeing what happens. So
yeah, I think
yeah,
Sparky Parker says Danes win, and I have the money on that as well. It's just a matter of like, I don't know how well Australia can defend. We'll see. I mean, they did give. Here's the thing: one thing Australia showed against France is they can counter and get some like into some scoring situations off of the counter. The mistake they did against France is they scored too early, and once they scored, that game almost like changed. You would think the momentum would go to Australia, but it went the other way around, and France kind of like woke up a little bit and kind of went full force. And it was only a matter of time before they started scoring, which they did. So yeah, I'm not too enthused about that. I mean, Australia Denmark will be the game that's on because, like you're saying, the other one is you can watch the highlights and see all the goals there. I think it's going to be that kind of game. But at the same time, it's like a chance for. I mean, if Tunisia wins and yeah, they have no way of going out, do they?
I think if Denmark wins,
Because they lost to Australia, so they don't have the tiebreaker there either.
right?
So, yeah, that's going to be like interesting to see. But yeah, not very looking forward to these games in the long run over here. Let's go to wrong group over here. Back to Group C. This is probably like a lot better games. Poland, Argentina. Wait, Argentina might need a win. Poland can get away with a draw, and Saudi Arabia is playing Mexico, and I think Saudi Arabia has been one of those teams that has been a lot better than I think anybody thought, and I think it comes because that team is used to playing with each other for like an extended time, and I think it shows on the field. What do you see happening over here today?
Yeah, this one's it's a toss up. I don't really know. My hope is that Argentina wins the group. They would be Poland to get first in the group just so the bracket sets up nicer and you don't have Argentina, France in the first round. That'd be kind of a bit of a bummer. But
Oh, that's right.
yeah. But from my perspective, with that in mind, and this is gonna sound crazy. If you told me this before the tournament started, I think the team with the best chance in that group against France, that's not Argentina, is Saudi Arabia. With their performances against Argentina and Poland so far, I think they could give France a good game just with their press and the offsides trap. But like I said, if you told me that 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, you're a crazy person. Saudi Arabia against France is going to be a massacre. But I think, yeah, they between Mexico and Poland, from what I've seen so far, I think Saudi Arabia has the best chance. But whether they get there or not is a different story. I think they need to beat Mexico, if I'm not mistaken.
They do need to beat Mexico.
Right.
Because they
And that's
did
a tough
end up
task.
losing to Argentina, right? So they have the tiebreaker. If Poland smashes, um, no, they can draw actually. If Poland wins,
Okay.
a draw is enough for Saudi Arabia because they will get to 4 points, and now Poland will be at 7. Having watched Poland, I don't know if that's happening, but at the same
Right.
time, Argentina does have trouble opening like a defense that you saw in these. And I don't know, like it's kind of like one of those like weird deals where I don't know if it's going to be Poland sitting back. They've been a lot more timid than what expected, to be honest with you. But I think, the Polish Prince, our Polish representative over here who joins us Mondays, Matusz, has talked about like how poor their back line is, and a lot of that, timid game is more about kind of like covering that back line and not just going crazy and leaving him out to hang. Kelly always runs to meetings, I noticed, towards the ends of the show. So he said she guys enjoy these morning chats. Always great to have you on, Kelly. Join anytime. So give me a final prediction over here. You can't say I can see it all happening.
Final prediction: Argentina win and Mexico win. I think that's what's gonna
Really?
happen. Yeah, I think Saudi Arabia is gonna choke at the end, and it's gonna be heartbreaking. But which would I think put Poland through, even despite the loss.
So you think Poland and Mexico will go through?
No, Argentina. Argentina
Oh,
wins, and then
Argentina is going to
Mexico.
beat Poland,
Yeah.
and then Mexico is going to beat Saudi Arabia and go through.
No, because they're not gonna win by enough goals. So then it's gonna be Poland who goes through.
So you're only calling like 1 goal wins. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think Argentina wins, and I really think Saudi Arabia wins or
Right.
gets enough.
I
Because
mean,
the
I
goal
hope so.
differential is not that much either. I mean, they're only -1, and Poland is only 2. So, I mean, Poland, if they're losing, they can't be like, hey, it's all or nothing and go all out, because the goal differential will play a role. But that's those 2 games. So which one will you be watching? Poland, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico.
I'll probably have Argentina like on the big screen and the other one on my phone, just because I think they're two really good matchups. But personally, if I had to choose one to watch, we only have limited opportunities to watch Messi at this World Cup, so I'm a huge Messi fanboy. So
Oh,
I'd probably
here
choose
we go.
Argentina.
Here we go. No matter you poo-pooed the Ronaldo, no matter you brought the tweet for Ronaldo in the first place. This all
See, I respect
makes
Ronaldo
sense now.
still,
Honestly,
but
the thing that I get annoyed with, I don't really care for either of them. I mean, I enjoy watching them because they're a good player and I love the sport and I'll watch it. I just hate that everything they do gets so freaking blown up during the broadcast. So I blame more than the player. I blame the broadcasters because, look at how
right,
Messi fixes his hair. He's still looking at the field as he does it. He's surveying the field even when he fixes his hair. And, like just really, really stupid basic shit that any player does. They make it look
right,
like he's the only one who does this and stuff. It's like, no, man, he's really good, but that shit everybody does. So it's things like that almost make me root against them sometimes because I want to see what the hell the broadcaster is going to say then. But that's the only reason. It's just that's the only. So I might just watch the. Honestly, here's one. Isn't Telemundo Mexican as a
yeah,
channel?
hmm
Dude, I was shocked, and I was telling Angel, and they were like, "Well, they have to call the game," and I'm like, dude, like when I watched the Mexico Argentina game on Telemundo, just because I didn't want to hear all that messy shit, and not to mention, I wanted to kind of get the feel of the home team calling, like in Spanish. I don't speak a word of Spanish, so it's all, for the most part, it's gibberish to me. I can understand certain words, obviously, but and they were really celebrating the Argentina goal. And I was like, is it because it's Messi? Like, I mean, they still made the goal announcement and stuff like that. I don't know how it is in Egypt, for example. So I want to get your perspective. Like back home in Turkey, if the other team scores, I mean, you'll literally say the broadcasters say, and they've scored. Like it would be that subtle and quiet. Like they wouldn't be like, oh, they scored on us or anything like that. It would be very like low key. I mean, they literally have said like, and it's a goal, and that's it. And then like you're like, oh yeah, we should have defended better there or something like that. But that's been it. So, is it the same in Egypt or do they still do the whole goal kind of deal?
it depends. Like you said, like if it's like a rivalry game, or if we're playing, like just say like Algeria or something, that's kind of like our rivals, then I don't think they'd be very happy. But if it's like I said, it depends on the team. Like if we were playing like Portugal, for example, and Ronaldo scores, I think you would see a similar reaction. And in terms of Telemundo, I've always preferred Telemundo to English broadcast, even though I'm not entirely fluent in Spanish, just because, like you said, they're very neutral and they always have good reactions, and it's always a good energy around the commentary. You feel like you're watching an occasion. You know what I mean? Like they always do a
Yes,
good job
good
of
point.
setting it up.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so. Like it's more of an atmosphere, right? Like when you watch,
right.
whereas yeah, we talked a lot about you know, the broadcasting and how brutal it is. We're still gonna do the Hall of Fame of shitty announcers on Monday podcast. Alan says, "How I wish Pele had played in this era. He'd make Messi and Ronaldo look like he owned them." I see. I don't know. I always find that very difficult to take a guy and then put him in, because the game has changed so much. Because Pele might also look like Taki right now, where people throw him around very easily, like physically. I mean, obviously, thank God I'm not that old to watch Pele, but I've seen highlights and here and there. And yeah, it just feels like, I don't know. It's hard to compare eras for me. And I think that's the biggest difference. The physicality of the game has changed so much. The pace of the game has changed so much. You watch games, and that's was my criticism of like Major League Soccer, and it still is. You watch games from like, I mean, like I say, because my dad, well, my grandfather was, I've seen a lot of footage of him and playing and stuff like that for Fenerbahce, and you can almost see the lines, like the defense, midfield, and the attackers. And when the one team is attacking, the defenders are like staying there, like there's no, it just goes, it's almost like football, like, just like everybody's in a line and the ball goes back and forth. So it's not as dynamic, and there's not as much running, there's not much effort, because they're not pressing or anything like that. They tried to score, it didn't happen. They're like, okay, we'll try again next time the ball comes up, I guess. And they just kind of move on, and the ball goes there. The defenders stay with the forwards, they just hang out till the ball comes back. It's almost like two mini games being played on each ends. So I always find it hard to compare eras, because I don't know if Pele would be able to press, and then the conditioning and sound like an old guy, but yeah, the conditioning, the nutrition, and all that kind of stuff that has improved over the years. So does this hurt pretty bad? By the way, you mentioned Egypt. I'm almost used to Turkey not making it. So, but as like somebody watching Senegal, does it be like, God damn it, man, we could have been there?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's very painful. Yeah, it hurts. especially with the way we lost in qualifying. We lost in penalties.
Yeah.
A month after losing in penalties again to Senegal. So that was probably the worst part. And now that they're there, I support all the African teams. They're representing all of us, so I want to see them do well. It's like I said, it kind of hurts, especially like 2018 was the first World Cup I'd seen Egypt play in my life, and so now that I got like a taste for it, I'm just like, I want to see them every World Cup, and I got that itch. You know what I mean? Like if we hadn't qualified in 2018, I'd be like, oh, just another World Cup. But now that like I know what it's like, I'm like, oh no, I want that feeling again. So that's kind of what hurts the most, and it is what it is. Like that's just the luck of the draw. But like I said, I'm still supporting all the African teams, so hopefully they do well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I didn't know like there was. I mean, because Turkey always not doesn't get qualified out of Europe. There's no really like, oh, these guys are from Europe, let's root for them kind of a deal. I actually like find myself rooting more for teams out of Europe for some reason, because they usually end up being the underdogs. But yeah, that's interesting that you say that there's some kind of like a continent pride in terms of these are the guys we're sending there, and then like support them while there. So that's like an interesting ordeal. Okay, well, Rami, my lighting is giving way. I don't know what's going on. So maybe the coffee cup is empty, so we need the second cup or something like that. Go back to being the greatest dad again. So, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks to all those commenting, liking, all that kind of stuff. Give us a share as well, and we will see you guys tomorrow morning. Take care.